Okay, so now that we made our argument parser, let's talk about our messaging structure. Also, we talked about how we're going to manage the commands that are pushed into the CLI. So let's get started. So this is a way that I would do it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the structure for the actual stack. So this is the actual instruction stack. So the instruction stack, I can see having commands in it. So since we have a command, we're talking about commands, let's make a type definition. So we could do a type def. And this is a way, so there's no classes, no such thing as a class in C programming. So we use structs. Okay? So it'll be a struct, and we'll call it command. And now let's talk about what we want the contents of this to be. So in a typical command, let's put an ID on it just in case we want to do some troubleshooting. Let's get a name for it. So whatever name. So that name is going to be whatever command, that action. Okay. So then let's give something for the arguments. So the arguments for that action. So we do something like this. And then let's, now remember we're dealing with a stack. So we want to know what command is empty and what command is not. So we have to enhance this over time. And we might have to change the way we do the stack as well. But for now, just to get things working, let's just put a Boolean in here. And we'll say whether it's empty or not. And initially, when this is first instantiated, it'd be empty as true. Now, let's talk about that Boolean. Boolean is true or false, 1 or 0. We can always use like int or something like that, but I want to use a Boolean. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to include the std bool.h. Okay? See if we can find it. All right. So I included that. So now we have our command stack. Now we need something that's going to hold these commands. So I don't want it to be where I just type in one command and that's it. I want this to be very flexible. So what we can do is we can make another type def. Okay. So let's take our type def. And we're going to call it instruction stack. So what I'm going to do is it's going to be called I stack. Okay. So I go I stack. Let's see. Yeah, I do a capital letter. All right. So then what's going to go inside of the I stack? That's what we need to talk about. Okay. Let's finish that off right there. Let's finish this off right here. And inside this I stack, we want an array of commands. Okay. Command, and we call it commands. And there's another thing too. How many of these commands do we want this to hold, right? So let's set a buffer. So we put a stack buffer. B-U-F-F-E-R, if I can spell today. And then what we're going to do is define that stack buffer at the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go here, and I'm going to do a define, and we're going to take stack buffer, and we're going to set stack buffer to 100. Okay, so we can have 100 commands in here. Okay, so let's go and save that, and let's see if it. Okay, yeah, 100. All right, so that's what I want. So now we got the commands together. Let's talk about initializing that I stack. Okay, so one thing we want to do is let's go to our driver first, and let's instantiate an I stack. So we say I stack, and we'll call it instruction stack. All right. So in previous videos, you saw me mark this as a pointer, but that caused issues when I want to go by reference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this by reference um, in any function that I use, so that this variable right here, the actual contents of the address of this variable during the life cycle, it changes. And I don't want to do any global variables, because if I'm using a library and we happen to clash with someone else's library, I don't want this variable to clash with someone else's library. So we're going to keep this all on the local level of the main. Okay? And we're just going to pass it by reference to whatever we want. So let's talk about initializing this, because remember, when we deal with pointers, we're dealing with memory. So we want to, what we want to do is we want to instantiate this. So let's do a void init. And remember, I wanted to pass this by reference, so we'll do like a iStack. And we'll put this right here as the pointer, okay? So we'll say iStack, and we'll take this same thing right here just to keep it stupid simple, okay? And we'll say this is what we want to initialize, all right? So now, let's take this, because we prototyped it, and let's do something like this. Let's go here, and now let's talk about initializing this, all right? So we have a couple things. Oh yeah, so let's call our init right here as we go to. Let's do this. Let's call the init. This is initialize. And what we're going to do is we're going to, by reference, we're going to pass this by reference so that it changes whenever we use it within this scope. Okay. Now, the big no-no to do is where you make this as a pointer. Then you won't be able to, it will already be as reference and you pass it here. But it causes a lot of confusion. So we're just going to keep this on the level of the scope within the main function, and we're going to pass it by reference. Okay. So now, let's talk about initializing. So one of the things, we have to look at some of the elements in here when we initialize. For one, our main objective is to make it where we make space allocated for all the commands and the contents within commands. That means that some of this stuff might need to be allocated right here. These two right here has to be allocated because we're using pointers. And so what we're going to do is let's make our init our init function. So let's start out with how we do that init function. Okay. So first we have that stack buffer as to the size that we want this to be. So let's start out with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a for, and we'll do an int x is equal to 0. X is less than the stack buffer. Oops, can't spell that. Stack buffer, and then we'll do an x plus plus, and then inside of here we initialize that whole thing. Okay, so let's kind of clean that up a bit. So now the first thing we want to do is we want to grab all of the commands, all of the actual commands and everything, okay, from this iStack. So it'll look something like this, okay. So what we're going to do is each command, remember we're going by the index of x, okay, and what we'll do is we'll do since this is by a pointer, and then we'll do commands, see how that pop up for us, and then we'll do x. Okay. So we have maybe about 4 things that we want to set when we do this. Okay. So let's start with args because that's the most complicated one. So we'll do .args, and we'll say equal to, and you know the data type for args is the ** chars, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to allocate that. So we want it to be char star star, and we're going to do a mem allocate. So it'll be ALLOC. And then now let's talk about the size. So we want it to be, we're going to say that the stack buffer is going to be how many arguments as well that you want to be able to pass. Okay, and this is not including the name. The name goes somewhere else. And then we say times, and then what we want to do is the size of the actual data type. Okay, so we go size of, and then we do char, because these are all characters. Okay, so this is saying that, whoops, this is saying that I want whatever size these characters are, a char is, I want to multiply that by this right here. So you can have 100 arguments in there. Okay. So let's see what's wrong with this stack buffer. Hold on. Got my x plus plus. Okay, it should be fine. All right. So now, let's talk about the name. Okay. So what we can do is just take the name, typical characters. So we just take this and push this through, and then we do a dot name. Okay, which name is just char. So we do the data type that we want to cast it to, which is that pointer, and then we have the memory allocation, which is right here. Let's copy this, put this here, and that's it right there. Okay, we're going to use the stack buffer for this too, but this one is going to say we have a max of 100 characters. Okay, so now let's see. I think I got a hiccup somewhere. It's my size of, here we go right here. Let's take that, put that there, and I think everything should be good. Let's see what's going on here. Yeah, everything should be good to go. Let's make sure we got that right there. Let's go and look at this stack buffer. Stack buffer is fine. Okay. I think it's just my IDE going crazy. Alright. So now, and we'd know what happens when we compile. So then we have a couple more things where we have, so these two are the hardest parts, getting that memory allocation. And then right here, we have this right here. And we have the dot empty. And we want that to be true right out the gate, which we've already instantiated that. And then the ID, we might not use the ID too much, but we just say equal to 0 and have a 0 ID. ID may be something that it was something I thought of a long time ago, but I'm gonna try to twist it to see what I can use it for. I don't feel like getting rid of it. Okay. So now we have our init. Okay. And let's see how that works for us. Let's see if it actually runs for us. Okay. So we have our init here. We got the iStack going through the init. And let's make sure that our this is right. And so now we got the init. So what we can do is let's do a run. And let me see something. Okay. Let's do a run. And let's run it. Okay. So let's do our GCC. Okay. So see, right here, it's saying that there's a problem somewhere in here. So let me figure out what's going on with this. Okay, so we got our x less than x plus plus. Our x plus plus right here. Got our for statement. So let's check that stack buffer. Let me make sure the stack buffer is right. Okay. Ah, gotcha. That might be the problem. Yeah. One's supposed to be it's a no-no on my part. There we go. Fixed everything. So let's do this. Okay. And these are just warnings right here. And then let's give it a run. Okay. That means our initializer worked. Hopefully it means it worked. And we'll see when we start loading things into that stack. So now we want to load these arguments now. So what we want to do is alter the signature of this right here. And we'll leave this right here. And what we'll do is after we run this by reference, we want to do some changes. So we want the iStack to be here now. So we're going to change those arguments over here. And then we're going to prep the parser to be able to take those arguments. Okay? And that is it for right now. So what we did was we actually made our initializer, making sure that we allocate the right memory and stuff like that. We put a buffer in. We initialized our iStack. We gave some structure to how we're going to give this CLI commands. So our next steps would be injecting those commands that with our parser into the actual iStack. How will we load them into the iStack as they come in? We already have the algorithm for the actions, which are right here. We just need to load them in, okay? And that's it.